Shadows of Europe, the Kaunas cousin murders. December in Lithuania isn't just a season, it's a wait. The sun retreats by 4 p.m., leaving the medieval alleys of Kaunas and the brutalist Soviet-era blocks bathed in a sickly orange sodium light. In late 2025, that winter arrived with a particular cruelty. Kaunas is a city of layers. It is the temporary capital of the interwar period, a hub of high-tech students, and a place where family ties are the iron mesh that holds society together. But on the night of December 9th, those ties didn't just fray, they were severed with a violence that hadn't been seen in the city for decades. The call came in at 8:22 p.m. A dog walker near the edge of Linger Park, a sprawling green lung surrounded by apartment blocks, had seen something unnatural near a cluster of birch trees. When the first patrol car arrived, the officers expected a vagrant or perhaps a victim of the cold. What they found was a tableau of rage. Two young women, ages 19 and 21. They were cousins, Karina and Victoria. They weren't just found, they were displayed. The forensic report, leaked weeks later, would describe overkill, a term used when the number of wounds far exceeds what is necessary to take a life. It suggests a killer who didn't just want them dead, he wanted them erased. As the yellow police tape went up, shivering in the Baltic wind, the detectives of the Kaunas County Police Headquarters realized they weren't just looking for a killer, they were looking for a shadow. There were no witnesses, no discarded weapon, just the silence of the frost and two families whose lives had just ended in all but the physical sense. But then, the first digital ripple occurred. While the lead investigator, Inspector Arūnas Paskavičius, was still marking shell casings, of which there were none, and knife trajectories, a photo appeared on a private Telegram group titled Kaunas Safety. It was a blurry image of a man in a dark North Face jacket walking away from the park perimeter at 8:15 p.m. The caption read, "Does anyone recognize this bastard? He was running." In the time it took for the police to call the coroner, the photo had been shared 4,000 times. The hunt hadn't just begun, it had been crowdsourced. In a traditional investigation, the police control the flow of information. They hold back protected details to weed out false confessions. They release a suspect's photo only when they are certain. But in the Kaunas cousin murders of December 2025, the police lost the lead in the first 3 hours. By 11 p.m., while the bodies of Karina and Victoria were still being photographed in situ, the Kaunas Safety Telegram group had mutated. It wasn't just a neighborhood watch anymore. It was a digital war room. Imagine being Inspector Paskavičius. You're trying to maintain a sterile crime scene, but every 5 minutes, your phone buzzes. It's not your dispatch, it's your wife, your sister, your retired father. They're all sending you the same link to a Facebook live stream. A young man, let's call him Linus, a fitness influencer with 40,000 followers, had driven his SUV to the perimeter of Linger Park. He wasn't there to mourn. He was pointing his camera at the police tape and shouting to his audience. "They aren't telling us anything. We know who did it. It's the cousin Benes. He's been seen at the petrol station on Savanori Avenue. Go there now. Block the exits." This was the birth of the digital posse. Within an hour, Savanori Avenue, one of the longest streets in Lithuania, was swarmed, not by police, but by volunteers in black hoodies and heavy boots. They weren't looking for evidence. They were looking for Benes Mikutavičius. Who was Benes? To the public, he was a monster. To the police, he was a 24-year-old with a history of minor drug offenses and a diagnosed but untreated intermittent explosive disorder. He was the black sheep of a respected Kaunas family. Most importantly, he had been seen arguing with Karina and Victoria at a family dinner only 2 days prior. The motive, according to the digital grapevine, was a dispute over an inheritance, a small plot of land near the Neris River. In the minds of the 10,000 people now tracking the case on their phones, the trial was already over. Benes was guilty. The only question was, who would find him first? The police were now fighting a two-front war. Front 1, the forensic investigation. Front 2, preventing a riot. At 1 a.m., a silver Audi was forced off the road by 3 civilian vehicles near the Kaunas castle. The driver, a terrified university student who happened to own the same jacket as the suspect, was dragged from his car. He was punched twice before someone in the crowd realized he wasn't Benes. The posse didn't apologize. They simply got back in their cars and kept hunting. Meanwhile, the real Benes Mikutavičius was a ghost. He had turned off his phone, he had no car, he was navigating the green corridors of Kaunas and the interconnected parks and forests that allow a person to walk from one side of the city to the other without ever touching a main road. He was using the city's geography against it, while the city used its technology against him. But the digital posse had a weapon, the police didn't. Total lack of bureaucracy. While the police were waiting for a judge to sign a warrant for Benes's bank records, a white hat hacker in the Telegram group had already cracked Benes's old gaming account. They found his last used IP address. They found a series of private messages sent to a friend 3 months ago mentioning a hideout in an abandoned Soviet bunker near the 7th Fort. This is where the story takes its most dangerous turn. At 3:15 a.m., the Telegram group administrator posted a set of GPS coordinates. "The rat is at the bunker. Don't wait for the cops. They're too slow." 500 people saw the message. Within 20 minutes, a convoy of private cars was speeding towards the outskirts of the city. The shadows of Europe were no longer hidden. They were being chased by 1,000 high-beam headlights. The 7th fort of the Kaunas fortress is a grim place. Built in the late 19th century, it was a site of mass executions during the Holocaust. The soil there is heavy with history and blood. It is a labyrinth of red brick, overgrown ramparts, and freezing underground magazines. When the first wave of the digital posse arrived, they didn't call the police. They surrounded the entrance to the Bunker 42, a second storage tunnel nearby. Benes Mikutavičius was inside. He wasn't armed with a gun. He was sitting on a crate, holding a kitchen knife, staring at battery-powered lantern. He was in a state of catatonia, or perhaps the realization of what he had done had finally crushed his psyche. The posse didn't rush in. They stood at the mouth of the tunnel, filming. The flashlights from their iPhones cut through the dark like searchlights. "Come out, you coward!" one man screamed. "Look at what you did to your own blood." When the police finally arrived, led by Inspector Paskavicius, they found a scene that looked like a medieval siege. The volunteers refused to move their cars, blocking the police vans. Paskavicius had to draw his service weapon not at the suspect, but at the crowd, just to clear a path to the bunker. "Back away!" Paskavicius yelled, his voice captured on a dozen different TikTok streams. "This is a crime scene. You are obstructing justice." The crowd didn't move. They felt they were justice. Finally, the ARAS, Lithuania's elite counter-terrorism unit, was called in. They didn't negotiate. They moved through the crowd like a phalanx, flashbangs ready. They entered the tunnel and within 90 seconds emerged with a hooded, shivering Benes Mikutavičius in zip ties. As the police van pulled away, the crowd didn't disperse. They cheered. They filmed the van. They posted, "Mission accomplished," stickers in the chat groups. But back at the station, the mood was different. The digital posse had contaminated their site. They had trampled over potential footprints, they had harassed witnesses, and most importantly, they had created a massive problem for the prosecution. How do you find an impartial jury in a country where 20% of the population watched the arrest live on a fitness influencer's Facebook page? The trial of Benes Mikutavičius was the shortest in recent memory. The physical evidence, despite the crowd's interference, was overwhelming. DNA from the victims was found on Benes's boots. The murder weapon, a 12-centimeter hunting knife, was recovered from the bunker. But the shadow of this case wasn't the verdict. We knew he was guilty. The shadow was the why. In his final statement, Benes didn't talk about the inheritance. He didn't talk about the argument. He looked at the floor and whispered, "The noise, it just wouldn't stop. Everything is too loud now." He was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole for 20 years. A harsh sentence by Baltic standards, but one the public demanded. However, the legal fallout for the digital posse was just the beginning. In February 2026, the Lithuanian Seimas Parliament began debating the Mikutavičius Law, a piece of legislation designed to criminalize the organization of private citizen manhunts via social media. The influencer found himself under investigation for inciting a riot. The white hat hacker was facing charges for unauthorized access to data. We like to think that technology makes the world smaller, safer. We think that by connecting everyone, we leave no room for the monsters to hide. But in Kaunas, we saw that the monster isn't just a man with a knife. The monster can be a collective rage of 1,000 people with a 5G connection. It's a rage that doesn't care about the presumption of innocence or due process. It only cares about the hunt. As Karina and Victoria were laid to rest in the frozen ground of the Petrašiūnai cemetery, the Telegram groups didn't go silent. They just moved on to the next case, the next shadow. Lithuania is a beautiful country. It is a land of resilient people who have survived occupations and tragedies. But as we move deeper into 2026, the people of Kaunas are left wondering, who really protects us, the law or the mob? This has been Shadows of Europe.